Well, guys, good evening. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. It's a big one tonight, and I've even written down a little monologue at the beginning. What's going on, I say? Looks like typical political sabotage and cancellation, with Reform's former MP, Rupert, the big bad bear Lowe, getting the whip taken. And already talk of fake and made up allegations against Rupert Lowe, with many top people already coming out forward in supporting him. Saying that, with all that in mind, I would think Rupert Lowe or others would have known what was coming, and hopefully Rupert Lowe would have been prepared. But the biggest thing I'm going to say tonight, and this is what Mr. Rimmer says, it's what Paul Rimmer says. When you go up against Farage, you're taking on the giant. You're taking on Goliath. And no matter what you think, you better be ready to do it. And that's what he's done. And that's our mighty Paul Rimmer says that. But good evening, everyone. Like and share the stream, please. Share all over. Share to your Reform friends, to your Rupert Lowe friends and stuff like that. Share all over. And let's discuss what's going on. Paul.
Well, I mean, we spoke last week about the incredible rise of Reform. I mean, it gone over 200,000 members. They were high in the polls. They were even above Labour. They were looking like a government in waiting, you know. They were doing extremely well. And, of course, the local elections were coming up. They were going to contest, I think, over 1,500 seats. So they were building up campaigns and seat after seat. I believe this Labour MP for Runcorn's resigned now. The guy who punched the fella, who got found guilty of assault, he's resigned. So there's going to be a by-election there. So it was looking really rosy for Reform, and I thought someone's going to put a spike in their wheel. I mean, they've had it so good for so long. 6 months since the general election, their membership has gone from 20,000 before the general election, went up to 50,000, and then it went up to 220,000. And, Rupert Oldham was part of that rise. He was making great interceptions in Parliament. He was asking pertinent questions. He was really part of the raising the profile of the party, especially online. He was very active. But I noticed he became increasingly radical in his statements. I thought maybe Farage just give him a bit of leeway to, and but he was becoming stridently anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, and then he brought up this notion of remigration and deportation. I thought, Nigel's going to be a bit worried about that. It's a bit too controversial at this part of their evolution, because Farage plays softly. He always takes a safety first approach, I thought Farage will have a word in his ear, Rupert Lowe, and just say, calm down a bit. We've got a long way to go. It's 4 years till the next general election. Let's just keep this progress going. But no, Rupert Lowe let off a torpedo, scupper the good ship Reform. And I'm thinking, has this come from the shadows? Has he been a Tory mole the whole time, waiting for the moment to scupper Reform? Because obviously the Tories are in dire straits. They haven't got a leader. She's just a waste of time, Kemi. The Tories are going nowhere. Labour are going to... They're tanking the economy. There's no growth in the economy. They're about to hit, they say. All the benefits are going to start being cut back. The money's not there. Keir Starmer said it's not sustainable. And now he's trying to market himself as a war hero, off to Ukraine and whatever. And that is about as popular as, I don't know, being on a sinking ship. It's not going to defy the public's imagination. So it was looking really good for Reform, and along came Rupert Lowe. And I think he's tried to scupper Reform, but, I mean, all credit to Farage. He just said, get out, mate. You've got to go. You've got to walk the walk. Now, he's huffed and puffed on X, but ultimately X is not the British public, it's just a section of the British public. It's a leading edge of politics, certainly. But it will all fade, I think. I think Rupert Lowe will be the main casualty of this. I think, see, Farage, as you said, he's not a giant. He is really the giant of British politics because he's been around for 25 years. He's been around longer than any of them now. He's the godfather of British politics. And he's got an incredible CV. I mean, he won a national election with UKIP when he won the European election. And then he won a national election with Brexit when they won the European election. He's scuppered Tory leaders. He's affected general election results. And ultimately, he got us the referendum and won the referendum and began this whole Brexit process. So Farage is a phenomenal politician. And of course, and this is really pertinent, he's Donald Trump's buddy, isn't he? And Donald Trump's the main man in the globe. And Farage, even though Elon Musk said that, I'm not sure if he's the man for the what's required in Britain. He wants something a lot more radical, Elon Musk. But Farage has been a good mate of Donald Trump since 2016. And that counts a lot for him. So I think, although a lot of people have huffed and puffed on X, I think ultimately Farage will overcome this. There's other issues to talk about, but I think it's the moment will pass. Stuart, what's your opinion?
Well, I have to say that Farage, yes, he's impressive. He's impressive in gathering momentum, getting a group together to sway public opinion, and he does that well. I really do think that. But every time that he wins, he walks away. I don't think he's a stayer. He's got no political stamina or the will to lead the country strong enough. And I have to disagree a little bit with Rupert Lowe because it seems that he's totally debunking everything that's said about him and he's going to get solicitors involved. But it shows to me we should be a democratic country, are we not? So therefore we should listen to all voices, whether you like them or not. That's what free speech democracy is. If you haven't got free speech, especially within a party behind closed doors, and you're getting cancelled for it and, defamed, shall we say, I do feel that he makes a target of someone. He's done it with Ben Habib. He doesn't like anybody speaking out against his policies. And then you got Tim Nice but Dim Rice. I just can't believe he's anywhere near a party. He hasn't got two brain cells to rub together. He's been saying for 4 years, I know how to get rid of all the immigrants. I know how to do it. Well, he hasn't come up with a plan. Not until Farage come along.
Can I just weigh in? I want to, something you said, Stuart, like unelected, right? So at the moment, Reform's leadership is not elected by the normal Reform members. You know what I mean? And this is the same of what we wanted in politics that we don't want in politics. This is what Labour and the Tories do. And they're doing the same thing. So I can see a really negative thing there, towards people like us. When we strive for democracy, we had our monthly meeting last night. We had someone on the monthly meeting who's not part of the party, and they were so impressed with our monthly meeting, how we're communicating with each other, not isolated like these leaders are picking each other. And we're sick of it. Tories, Labour, it happens with them all, and it's a really negative thing. But let me just butt in. I'm on Rupert the Bear's side, me, anyway. Rupert the big bad bear, I tell you. Rupert the big bad bear. And he is pretty much uncancelable. You know what I mean? You can't cancel him. It's going to be a battle. I do think Farage will win, and he is going up against the master of British now politics. He's going up against a giant of English politics right now. He is. He's not going to win, but he'll give a good fight. Will Rupert the Burr? I tell you.
But you know what I think, John. I mean, Stuart said that Farage hasn't got the stamina, to stay in the battle. But the truth is, Farage only had one goal with UKIP. That was to get Brexit. He wanted to get us out of the EU. He had no vision beyond that. He thought, once we're out the EU, I'll hand it back to the Lib Lab Com and see how they get on. But this time with reform, it's a different agenda. This time he wants government. This time it's a real political revolution. And of course, it's part of the revolution which is coming out of America, the Trump revolution. We're seeing the overthrow of the globalist order every single day. And really, reform just have to hold on because Trump is going to reshape the world. The European elite is crumbling. The gamble in the Ukraine has failed. And therefore, it's going to create a big opportunity for reform because what we need to do in this country is to get rid of the Lib Lab Com. Their monopoly of power in this country has to be broken. And we have to allow new voices to emerge. And reform are they're the cutting edge of that process. Because we have a different political system in Britain. But ultimately, I think the next general election, it's going to be Farage against Starmer. Because I don't think Kemi actually registers. And I don't think the Lib Dems have got any real impact. So at the next election, it's going to present a choice to the British public of Farage or Starmer. And I'll tell you what, Starmer's unpopular now. By the time of the next election, people will really hate his guts. Because once he starts cutting benefits and once the economy's tanking, every policy, this net zero, it's all madness. And all reform have got to do is point that out and they'll win the game. It'll be an open goal. So I feel that, he's there for the long term this time, Farage. He's there certainly to the next election. And of course, with reform, John said they're not democratic. But the truth is, it's a brand new party. I mean, Farage only joined at the last general election. He's only been active in it for 6 months. And they haven't even got branches reform. The membership has gone from 20,000 to 200,000 in 6 months. They're still organising branches. They've only got a handful of councillors. They're coming up to their first, really, national election, which is these local council elections. And that's why I'm very suspicious about what Rupert Lowe's done. His timing is all wrong. And he went for a meeting with Liz Truss, and he's saying he's got a lot of friends who are Tory MPs, and he may well go. He came from the Tories. He said, I may well go back to the Tories. So, I'm a bit suspicious of what he's up to. But ultimately, I think Farage will ride this storm because all he needed to do was torpedo Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe is the whip's withdrawn. He's talking about creating a new party. Won't happen. We heard this with so many people. They're going to create a new party. I mean, what Reform has created is absolutely phenomenal. Politically, it's unique. To go from 20,000 to 200,000 in 6 months, that's never been done in British politics before. So, it's although this will take some of the wind out of the sails, I think the good boat Reform will carry on their sailing and will sail to victory. Go on, John.
Right, so I agree with Paul on a lot of things. They have smashed it. They are doing well. I've proved that they are helping me and smaller-minded people to get local election seats. It's all in the plan. It's there in black and white. But Reform, What can I say? I've been to studied the Reform conferences. I know loads of people. I've talked to several of the MP candidates in the past general election. I don't like saying the names because they seem to get cancelled when they talk to me, even though I'm just a general guy. And that's one of the big things I hear. But you know, we predicted this. Reform is a big, massive tree, and it's full of fruit and berries and all that lot. Now, it's had a bit of a shaking now with the Rupert Lowe scandal, Ben Habib leaving all of a sudden and all that lot. So, you know, it shook a few of them berries. Now, you know, if you're politically homeless, you know what I mean? There's always a National Housing Party, guys. You know what I mean? There's always a National Housing Party. We want to be democratic. We need to still make up our executive council and have a chairman, but we want people on board. So, you know, if you're disillusioned with reform, come join us. We've got a track, a focused track. We know what we're doing. You can look back on our streams that we've done for 2 years, and we are active in running in local elections. So the fruit's been shaken. Some of that fruit is falling down. If you're politically homeless, there's nothing wrong with the National Housing Party. And there's nothing wrong with staying and getting involved in politics. Get to your local council meetings. If you're thinking about running as a candidate, talk to someone else who's running as a candidate. Do some door knocking. See what your friends think. Get more involved in politics, because if more of us did get involved in politics, we would have a really good, strong country, economy and everything. So we need people to get on board. But please like and subscribe, share and all that, please. Thank you. We're only streaming on Pat's X at the moment, NHPUK press office, not streaming on mine. But I'll find out the reason why. But we're on VK Dlive, we're on Rumble as well, and we're on Facebook, and of course we're on YouTube. So please like and subscribe. Press the subscribe button on all our descriptions and that. But this is it, guys. Honestly, this is the first wave, the first tidal wave. There was a little tiny wave when Ben Habib left, and I mean little tiny. But this wave that Rupert Lowe has caused is massive. And you know, I like Rupert Lowe. He's really honest and forefronted. And some of the things he's said is like me saying some of the things I've said in Mer's question time, like called all the police the crooked and stuff like that. So, you know, I do like his blunt style. I do. He's got a colourful past with football chairman and that. But, you know, he's a made man, and he's made his own money and stuff like that. And these are the kind of guys that, you know, we want, you know, within our hierarchy and that, who will think about UK things, and he does. All Rupert's money goes to charity as well. We don't take any of that. But, you know, what's caused this? A lot of stuff has been going towards that Zaire Yousaf. So, like, what's he got to do with it all? People are saying that he's part of the ploy to kick people out and all that lot. But I agree with Paul's assessment. Last thing I'm going to say, I agree with Paul's assessment as Farage don't want to be that extreme, because it is like the two ends of the stick. I've seen some tweets and that Rupert's done and gone like that, thinking Farage would never say that. So maybe that's it. Maybe he's too hardcore for Farage and that. But you know, with the false accusations and all that going round now, and people being accused, this is we talk about this with reform. This is one of the most nastiest aspects, is the cancellation, how they deal with people. You know what I mean? You just couldn't make it up. The school kids in a school ground could run the party better than they could. But Stuart, what do you think?
Well, I have to say, applaud you for that last comment about kids in a playground. Absolutely. What I would say to people out there is we've all been disillusioned over years and years with politics because we've just lost faith. We need to find our Christian faith. We need to bring our faith back in people. We need to push ourselves into politics, local politics, get your voice heard, have a look at us online, have a look at our policies, see if you like something or don't like something. Get in touch if you've got some good ideas. Everything helps. And that's what I don't like about reform. If they're chucking people out just because they've got slightly hardliner views, slightly, it's not like he's saying, let's go and round them up and just chuck them in a boat. You know, he wants an end to migration. And I'm more and more people I speak to, they're backing it. They're seeing what's being suppressed by the mainstream media because it's all available online. And you're finding out about the crime. Even Mark Crowley, the chief superintendent or whatever of the police, I saw a video of his that he put out yesterday, and the crime figures are absolutely through the roof. Over 800,000 serious sexual offences last year, and it's booming year on year. You know, our prisons are getting full of capacity, and Farage said, oh yeah, you know, if we've got foreign criminals, we'll deport them after their sentence. After their sentence, deport them straight away, have an agreement with particular countries, and even if you have to build prisons and pay to staff it over there, for instance, if you sent back a lot of the dual citizenships, or Pakistan, for example, their judicial system is a lot stronger. So sentence them here by agreement with the governments and send them back to their country to face imprisonment there, or whatever penalty that their country does. For instance, Pakistan, if you get caught for rape, you're hung, executed, simple as that. So if people over here knew that that would be the sentencing, if they got caught over here, I'm sure it would deter a lot of people. This is what I mean about strengthening some of the policies. I mean, immigration, I've read through today, they want to limit legal immigration, limit it. It's not enough. It's not enough to limit immigration and still allow people to stay and get citizenship. And then once you've got citizenship, you bring in the rest of your family or your second or third wife. It's Farage reform. I thought at first it was a breath of fresh air, but it's getting a little bit stale in places. And I think they're off to a rocky road, shall we say.
The thing is, Stuart, these policies only matter once you've got power and you can actually do something. At the moment, Reform are building their party, they're building up their structure. It's very early days, and it's going to be at least 3 or 4 years till they get anywhere near power. So at the moment, they don't have to have the exact policy. They just have to say to the British public, we're putting Britain first. We're going to clamp down on immigration, whatever. And the dispute, although they focused on this question of deportations, the real problem was that Rupert Lowe attacked Farage personally. He criticised him as a person, said he had a messianic complex, and so you can't do that. You can't attack the leader from a personal level. That's insubordination. If you do that,
I think that it knew, and I think it will come in this already. And we're just hearing about it lastly, but I think this has been going on a while. I do think.
Well, there's been a lot of friction within Reform, but there's a lot of friction within all political parties. There's a lot of friction within the Labour Party. There's a lot of friction within the Tories. Now, we don't really have that in the National Housing Party. because we're a Christian party and we expect decent standards of behaviour. But these parties now are secular. They don't have that root in the Christian tradition. The Christian tradition says this: where there is unity, the Lord commands a blessing. So we seek, although there might be differences of perspective or even different outlooks on various things, we in the National Housing Party, we encourage a friendly atmosphere where people feel confident to speak. Of course, we're nowhere near power, so I mean, ultimately, we're just exchanging opinions. But how we go forward strategically, there's a good atmosphere in the party. John said we had our monthly meeting, of the leadership last night, and there's a great banter amongst the members, and we've kept that going over the past 2-3 years. And that's why we're grown as a party, because we've got a good spirit within this party, and people are welcome. Of course, some people drop out for whatever reason, but we're growing as a party because we're a patriotic party. We're a party that believes in the British nation, and we want to advance the British nation. We're certainly on board for the Trump revolution. We want to overthrow the globalist power, and we want to stop all immigration, all refugees, end it all. All this nonsense has got to end completely. We've got to pull out. I mean, that old world's gone now. That globalist world, it's broken down, and it's time to end it. We've got to put the British first again in our own country. We want to get rid of the Equality Act. We want to get rid of all this nonsense where ordinary British people are put at the back of the queue. We want to stop all this health tourism, people coming over here just to abuse the NHS, to get free education for their kids, to plug into our benefit system. That's all got to stop. We've got to put the British people first. Now, that's a reasonable position. We have to reassert ourselves in this country. This country belongs to the British people. It doesn't belong to the whole world. The whole world has no right to cross our border and take. And that's what's happening under Labour, and it's what's happened under the Tories. And we need to stop that. So we're very realistic in this party, but we're a Christian party. We've got a moral basis. We're against the whole woke agenda. We believe in the family. We believe in children and growing families. We want to put children first. We're standing up against all this sexual perversion that's being pushed in schools. We don't want that. We want wholesome values again, wholesome Christian values. And because we're a Christian party, we've got roots. We've got roots in our Christian tradition, which talk about these things. Let's get back to manliness. Let's get back to good motherhood. Let's get back to the old traditional way of life. We're part of the traditionalist revolution, which is taking place across the globe. And therefore, we've got a future. Now, reform, I don't know how Christian they are. I mean, Farage never talks about Christ, and he says he's a cultural Christian, but you've got to have faith. You've got to believe in God, and you've got to believe, faith will be rewarded. The days when we just have a secular society where no one believes in anything, that's coming to an end, because faith will triumph in the end. And therefore, we need to be a party which has got a spiritual basis, it's got a moral basis, and it's got a national basis. That's why we work as a party. And that's really why Reform face these difficulties, and Labour and the Tories as well, because they've lost connection with their Christian roots. But I think one of the reasons Trump survived is because he has kept connection with his Christian roots. I mean, people are skeptical about his Christianity, but he goes to church every Sunday. He prays every day. He encourages Christians to get involved. He reads the Bible regularly. These are very important things that we neglect as a nation at our own peril. Now, we've turned away from all these traditions. We've got to go back to them. And really, this is going to be the issue, whether Britain survives or not, whether we can reconnect with our past. John?
Right, listen, guys. I know I started off with a tune. I'm going to play it again while we've got more people watching. So we've got a couple of minutes, but Rupert the Bird guy. Oh, guys, I've got to laugh. I've got to laugh. That's why I put it on again. I just made that up quick time. I just thought it was just like the fun thing to do. But,
Oh, that's brilliant, that, Joe. That's so funny, that.
But, this is the big birds are fighting. You know what I mean? They're at the top. They're not fighting. They're arguing. They're disgruntled.
John, I want to ask a question, right, to you and Stuart. And Reform are about to go into major local elections now in May the 1st. The standard 1,500 candidates. What impact is this going to have on their electoral campaign and their chances of success?
Stuart first.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know how many candidates they've got out in those 1,500 seats, and are all those 1,500 seats actually going ahead? Because I thought the government were trying to delay.
No, it was going to be 5,000, but there's only 1,500 now. But they've got a candidate in every seat apparently.
Oh right, okay. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what sort of impact this Rupert Lowe has had on possibly splitting people's votes. And like you say, Paul, is that what it's there for? I hope not. I hope it's all genuine, and maybe they can make it back up. I don't know, but I can't see a way forward if there's splitting off all the time. If they're chucking people out all the time, it's not going to come across well to the electorate at all. So it's a gauge of the local feeling and the national feeling as to whether Farage is genuine. I don't think people like Tice, most people I speak to, was it Rice or Tice? Tim Rice, I don't know. Yeah.
Tice.
Yeah. Yes. Tim Nice, but Tim. Ooh. Yeah. What's it? Posh Nosh and all of that. I don't think he appeals to the people. I don't think he's a good backup. You know, if you far flung to the future and you found Farage was Prime Minister, would you be happy having Rice, you know, second in command?
Tice. I think other people are going to emerge, Stuart. I mean, a party with 200,000 members, they must have some talent there. But I want to ask John this. On the 28th of March, Reform are having a massive conference in Birmingham at the NEC. What's the atmosphere going to be like? Will they overcome this? Or will they, especially with, say, a Yusuf?
Of course they will. Well, I'm honest, me. And if anyone's listened to me over the past few weeks, they know that I'm going to say that Reform are going to do well in the local elections. They are going to do. It's blindingly obvious. I know Pat's cringing because I've said it, but the figures are there, guys, and I'm not lying to you. They're going to do well in the next elections. Whether they do well in MP elections and by-elections, it's looking like the Tories are going to stop them getting in Runcorn. And I think Labour will still win that seat, but they'll give them a good run. But it's looking like the Tories are going to stop them. But are they going to do well in other places? Definitely. At least one of three MPs in our area, which is Angela Rayner, Jim McMahon and Deborah Abrams, at least one of them's gone next general election. Definitely, 100% one of them's gone. Probably Angela Rayner, maybe. So they are going to do well. Now, how will that affect me as a running candidate? It will benefit me as a running candidate because it'll make it easier for me to get a seat. It'll bring the amount of votes down that you need to get. Instead of getting 2,000 that I would have had to get 3-4 years ago, to definitely get my seat, I'm now under 1,000 or about 1,000, and it'll go a little bit lower. It's more democratic overall. Oldham now has 16 independent candidates, which is a force that's never been seen in Oldham before, and these 16 hold a lot of power in the town, even though they're not the majority, because the other groups need them to vote. They need their support to get policies through. And this is where we can say, no, well, we don't want that policy, or we want that policy changed to this and stuff like that. So it's going to benefit politics, no matter how well or bad they do. The next conference, it's not at the NEC, it's at another area in central Birmingham, but it's going to be massive. It is going to be massive. I was thinking about trying to get down there, doing a bit of media, but it's just too much this month for me. But
I think, John, the reason we've got to like welcome reform as an agent of change is because a lot of people in many constituencies, they say there's no point in voting, there's no point in getting involved. This is a Labour seat. It always has been, it always will be. Reform come along and they knock the foundations away from that. And suddenly Labour become vulnerable because Reform have got a lot of populist appeal. And once Labour become vulnerable, the politics comes alive again in local constituencies and in local elections. As you say, suddenly, because the Labour vote's been undermined, it's easier to get elected. It's not such a big gap. Instead of being a few hundred votes against 4,000 Labour, you only need, as you say, 1,000 votes. It changes the dimensions of politics in this country. We've got to break the Lib Lab com monopoly, and Reform are the best vehicle to do that at the moment. They're really shaking it. They are effective. And we've got to put it, and I'll ask you this, Stuart. We've got to put it in a global context. Everything is changing around the globe. The globalists, we're seeing the European elite are panicking about what's happening in the Ukraine. We're seeing the European economies are suffering because of net zero, because of the cost of energy. We're seeing the impact that mass immigration is having. People are very disillusioned with the political elite. So within the context of this global situation where the old globalist elite is crumbling, you see, Reform can go a long way. Is it part of this international wave of change which is going to transform politics in the West? Stuart?
When it comes to globalism, Trump, I'm very, very hopeful that things are changing. But I think the globalists were prepared for it. They always think of every avenue. You've already seen a few months ago that you had the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, and good old Billy Gates had a nice 4-hour meeting with Starmer over lunch. Now, I don't know what they've hatched, but I'm sure BlackRock have got their fingers in many, many pies in this country and across Europe. I've hope that as the European economic situation, it may crash the EU. The EU Commission, unelected, just appoint themselves. I think Europe is waking up to that. Hungary especially is waking up to that. The 800 billion euros, I think 3 or 4 out of the 27 countries opposed it, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you vote against it in the EU. It's done, dusted, fully globalist controlled. And I do worry that being backed in a corner, that there's going to be some big ructions ahead. I know that our economy's on its way to tank. It really is.
But there's another dimension as well, Stuart, which is the Russian dimension. It's not only globalism's crumbled in America and is under severe attack across Europe. Russia is winning the war in Ukraine. It's going to win this war. It's obvious now. That's a real defeat for globalism. John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to go to a comment that Pat's just put up there right now. I know it's not directly linked, but this is what Europe has got to put up with. Romania, they had elections, they elected someone. The European globalists don't like him. They've cancelled his election and took him down. And it is really that simple. There ain't nothing shady. And if you look into it, the United Nations was going to get a big base built on one side of it. And the guy who they took
Nearly
off,
finished.
he didn't really want it, did he? And
You're
so
talking about NATO there, John. NATO military base.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing to Romania in the Romanian elections. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to do it here, but it really puts my mind on it. How, like, is the people corrupt and is the people interfering? I always say about elections, you can't say anything about interference or vote fraud unless you're running an election. How can you say it from the outside? You don't know. You have to know the systems. You have to call it out, and I've called it out. George Galloway has called it out. Plenty of people have called it out, but it's just amazing that can go on and it's hardly mentioned in the news, and that's happening right now in Europe, in the ring road of Europe, on the edge of Romania, and it's the NATO and the European leaders and that are allowing this to happen. It's just unbelievul. But it's a good thing to bring up that, Pat. Maybe do something.
Go on, Stuart. Do you want to say something?
But anyway,
I was just going to say about that NATO base. Apparently, it's very near completion, and it is the biggest in Europe. The biggest army, NATO, whatever you want to call it, right on Russia's border again. And you keep poking the bear. It's not good.
You know, it isn't. You poke the bear. It definitely isn't good. And, you know, I'm not a particular fan of Russia. But again, like Stuart said, you're poking the bear. And as far as I'm concerned, with that episode, we shouldn't be encroaching on their borders. It's simple as. But getting back to reform, they're going to do well in the elections. I know they are. But that will benefit anybody who's running for the NHPUK. It will benefit other smaller parties throughout the country. It will benefit independents as well. And like I said, I proved it. There's 16 independents in Oldham. Things are dynamic. Voting is really changing. And I know Reform are going to do well. I went through this in the last election, some of the Reform candidate results of just running on the last minute. And there is a lot of talk. You know, it might be a bit of a battle between me and someone else, but it's going to help everybody in the long run. And that's a positive, and that's the vehicle of change that Paul was saying. It will help everybody in the long run, but we've got to get involved, guys. It's no use sitting on the sidelines. Oh, them and them and them and them. You need to get more involved in your community. You need to step forward, walk forward, and run as a candidate. That's what you need.
That's why I think small parties are very important. The National Housing Party. I mean, we're the sort of we generate ideas, we generate strategies of involving people in local government. We need different voices. I mean, this is the one big problem with Reform, is that they don't want different voices to emerge. Farage wants to be in control because he's still wary of the globalists. What they've done in Romania, they can do in various ways in Britain. They can cancel parties to globalists. Now, the problem for them is NATO's on its last legs. Trump has pulled the rug from underneath NATO. And the globalists don't have this total control that they had. This is what COVID was all about. It was just about controlling the population, scaring the population, having the laws in place to intimidate the population. Trump has come in as a liberator. And they went from COVID to the Ukraine war, and they're losing out in the Ukraine war. They're desperate there. I mean, Stuart talked about 800 billion that the European Union have put forward to rebuild the military. But they said they're going to borrow that money. They haven't got that money through tax revenue. Europe has already borrowed to the hilt. If the Germans start borrowing to the hilt, that means there's less money for everybody else. There's real economic problems ahead because Europe has this problem of no growth in its economy and this commitment to net zero, which is making energy very expensive, where energy is cheap in China and India, and Trump's making it cheap in America again. So Europe's going to be uncompetitive. Europe's not looking good. It's not looking good politically. It's not looking strong. Militarily, it's over. I mean, the idea of a European army, of a gang of Germans going to fight the Russians now is a joke, because these are woke countries. They've decimated their own military. I mean, the Germans, they didn't even have rifles for the last NATO exercise. They had to use brush poles, broomsticks for rifles. It's an absolute joke. And they haven't got the guts anymore to go toe to toe with the Russians. That's why they're dependent on the Ukrainians. But the Ukrainians don't want to fight this war anymore. The average Ukrainian just wants peace now. They want to put down the arms. They're sick of it. They've lost hundreds of thousands of men. It's an absolute disgrace. Zelensky is just a tyrant. He's a total fraud, and he's being exposed. And Trump's not going to support him anymore. I mean, he stopped his arms going there. He stopped the money going there. It's all over for Zelensky. The Europeans are not going to come up to the plate. They just haven't got it. I mean, Macron talking about going to war against Russia. The guy's married to a woman who's actually a man. It's absolutely, these people are a joke. No one's going to fight for these people. These people are not going to mobilize populations. I mean, this is the thing with Farage. I think he's going to have to realize that we're no longer under the globalist tyranny. It appears we are. But Trump has pulled the rug from under these people. And you can be more bold in what you say now. Farage is still cautious because he's been around a long time and he's been burnt in the past. So, once burnt, twice shy, once bitten, twice shy. He's moving ahead gradually, Farage, but he was doing a great work, Elon Musk has said he might not be the man because he's not radical enough. Elon Musk wanted Tommy Robinson involved, didn't he, in reform? Tommy Robinson's got to get out of prison. We need a populist edge. We need the working class to be mobilised. The British people have got to wake up again. We've got to reclaim our country. No one's going to do it on our behalf. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are saying, well, let's see the British rise to the challenge. And the way to rise to the challenge is to join parties like the National Housing Party, which are radical parties, which will put an end to immigration, which will put an end to refugees, which will resurrect this country, revive this country. This is what it's about. We've got to get this country back to decent health again. We've got to revive the soul of Britain. We need strong families. We need strong men in this country. Men, it's all about the emasculation of men. We need men to stand up again and assert themselves. We need men who are willing to come and take control again in this country. And that's what the National Housing Party is about. We want local people, we want British men and women to step forward and reclaim our country. I mean, you might not like what's happening in reform. You might think it's too controlled. You might think it's too wishy-washy, too centrist. Farage is playing that game. But if you want more edge, if you want more truth and more reality, join the National Housing Party. We're the voice of the future, and this is your chance. As Elon Musk said, we're the media now. People aren't listening to the telly anymore. They're not reading the newspapers anymore. They know it's all fake news. They know the mainstream media is a joke. It's just there to manipulate people. It's bought and paid for by the globalist elite. People want independent voices. They want independent opinions. They want the truth speakers to be given a platform. This is what the National Housing Party is. It's a platform for truth speakers. Stuart, give them some truth. All we want is the truth. Let's have some truth, Stu.
That is the truth. We need we need truths. We need people to be upfront with their opinions. Forget PC, forget all these phobias, forget all these isms, and be upfront with what you think and feel. It's I know it's tough at the moment, free speech, etc. You've got to be careful on social media now, which is awful. You should be able to voice your opinions, air them. The best way to combat so-called hate speech is more speech. The more you talk about a subject, the more opinions you get, the better understanding and the way you can knit together society again. And the only way to do that is with the truths, with Christian foundations brought back into our schools, brought back into our society, brought up front, not back here. It's something that we think about sometimes. Bring it up front. Let people know that this is a Christian country with Christian values, and we're going to resurrect it, bring it back for the future, for our children, because otherwise this country's lost. So get out there, get your voice, have a look at our website, other people's websites, see if you like some of our policies, see if you can come along to some of our meetings. We're always welcome to everybody. Colour, creed, religion, doesn't matter. Respect and love and truth. And that to me is the only way forward.
Right, I'm gonna say thank you, John Skidmore. We will talk about Christian persecution next week on the show, because we've seen a lot of that lately, and I'm sure the mighty Paul Rimmer has got some stuff to say. But that is definitely something on the books, and we'll do that next week. So big shout out to John Skidmore in the chat there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being active in the chat. I see my lovely Sarah come on. Sarah, if you're there, you need to email me or message me. We'll get you in on one of our team monthly meetings, Sarah, if you're listening. And you can listen in and listen how we do things and stuff, right? I think that's a really good suggestion for Sarah. But thank you, Andrew, and everyone else in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. I'll set a stream up next couple of days, and it'll be Christian persecution, right? That's what we're going to talk about, because it's absolutely scandalous, and nothing is on mainstream news, and that's even more like frustrating. But I've got to say, Reform are going to do well in the elections, whether or not what's going on with Rupert Lowe. I've made that crystal clear, and I've made it crystal clear for about since Reform started. Big John's been to the conferences. Big John's interviewed and talked to the MP candidates and plenty of other people involved in Reform. So I'm not being ignorant, and I did. But we sort of like predicted this, what was happening now. We predicted, Pat sort of like predicted this. And the mighty Pete Lawrence, who's not well at the moment, but he said about that tree shaking and then berries falling off. So, like I said, if you're disgruntled, join the National Housing Party. You've got nothing to lose. If you want to stand as a candidate, which I know a lot of people are doing for the first time, get in contact with us. We can help you out. No, it won't be too much on you. So we're the National Housing Party. Any last words, guys?
Yeah. Well, I want to look at the future. I mean, Pat did say that the Tories have imploded, they're finished, and they really are. There doesn't seem to be any life in them. I actually think Reform could win this Runcorn by-election, because the Tories are a lot weaker than you recognise there, John. But what I want to say is that Pat said that the Labour are finished, the Tories are finished, but Labour will implode as well, and we're seeing that. And Keir Starmer has just told the Labour MPs he's going to go to war against people on benefits. He's picking on the British poor to pay for the rearmament of Britain, to build up the military forces, and to pay for this mass immigration. It's a disgrace, and that will cause another wave, because everything they do is wrong. Everything these people do, whether it be the war on farmers, the war on private schools, the war on pensioners, and next is going to be a war on the British poor. The Labour Party is a disgrace, and they're going to implode. And we are the future. The globalist stranglehold has been broken by Trump. It's going to be broken in the Ukraine. In the short term, the Sky Blues, the Turquoise People's Army, the Farage Army will lead the assault, and they're going to do well, I think, electorally. They'll soon overcome this Rupert Lowe fiasco. But in the long term, it's red, white, and blue. That flag you see behind Stuart, that's the future. And that's what the National Housing Party lifts up high. And that's what we want in this country. We're going to go beyond Reform, and we're going to save Britannia. Stuart.
Well, how can I follow that up? I can't really, can I? Do you know what I mean? Can you be a little bit less verbal next time and let somebody get in? No, I absolutely agree. The only thing that worries me is the social disruption that Labour, I believe, deep down, they're deliberately causing it. Social unrest, along with the immigration, along with the rising crime, along with possibly lowering benefits, the attack on farmers. It's all part of the globalist play to bring about an angrier society. And then they can dangle a nice, happy little solution in front of you. Trump
will put a spike in that wheel, Stuart. Trump is going to put a spike in that wheel.
Where is it? Fingers crossed, that ripple coming across the big sea is just going to gather in height and power. That's what we need. We need power to the people. And what's that from? Citizen Wolfie, wasn't it? Wolfie?
Citizen Smith. Power to the people.
Exactly.
Power to the people. Right on.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Like and subscribe, share and everything. Join the National Housing Party. Good night.